Linda S.,
Present.
Ben Lepley,
Present.
Sean Young, present. Frank is out of town, so he's excused this evening. All right. The staff would like to inform all applicants that all applications on this DRB agenda will require a building permit or a sign permit. That the Design Review Board approval does not necessarily reflect the views and policies of the State Historic Preservation Office, which controls decisions impacting tax status or designated contributing historic properties. Please review SHPO's policies. If necessary, contact them directly before making any exterior changes to your property. The intent of the design review process as applied within the historic district is to improve and encourage uses leading to the conservation and or rehabilitation of buildings, structures, sites, objects, and spaces within the historic district, while allowing for a vibrant, creative, and livable community. It's also to encourage harmonious growth and orderly development. Assure that future setting design and construction will correspond to and enhance the visual characteristics of the district. Prevent construction, alteration, or remodeling from occurring in a manner that would be detrimental to the historical or visual characteristics of the district. At this time, we'll move to if we have any calls to the public, which I do not believe we have.
Can I interrupt for a second? Because you.
No.
Okay, forget it. What did it say? You didn't call our names.
I know we haven't got to you yet.
Oh, I mean, you didn't call our name during roll call. You called everybody else.
Ma'am, that was for the board members only. Roll call is to make sure that we have a quorum for the board.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, moving on to old business agenda item 1. This item was tabled at the May 5th meeting and the June 2nd DRB meeting. Application 2138 Bisbee Residential Historic District contributing property number 697 located at 819A Tombstone Canyon. Applicant Michelle Marsh. This agenda item is going to be tabled again for another 30 days. This time I'd like to make a motion to table this item for 30 days. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving on to new business. Agenda item number 2. Holly, are you ready for us?
Yeah, Dana's here.
Okay. All right. Give me just a moment. We'll go through our procedures and we'll open it up to you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Agenda item 2, application 21-52 Bisbee Residential Historic District, contributing property number 15 located at 150 Brewery Avenue, applicant D. Ray and HS Ray. This application is seeking approval to cover exterior with termite fireproof masonry finish. Stucco all porch and house trim to be maintained, painted, and 2 windows replaced. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the applicant to give your presentation to the board.
Dan.
Well, I don't think I have a whole lot to add to the narrative that was on the application.
We can hardly hear you.
I said I don't believe I have a whole lot to add to the narrative that was on the original application. The home is in pretty bad shape due to termite damage, and in our 40 years of owning homes in the mountains of Colorado, we have just always had our best luck, certainly our best presentation to insurance when they require, metal roof and stucco for fire issues. And we just felt the best thing for this property is that we would try to stucco it.
Okay. Having said that, do we have any public comments this evening? All right. At this time, I'm going to open it up to the board for discussion. There are no public comments beyond this point. This is a time for the board and the applicant, for the board to question the applicant and the board to discuss amongst itself.
I
It's
just
open
wanted to
the board.
make sure that all the DRB got my, the stuff that I sent out from Joe regarding item number 2.
I did, certainly. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
I did. Are we going to be able to read that or no?
If you'd like me to read it,
I would
can
like
read
you to
it.
read it, Sean.
Okay. DRB members. I have provided the action agenda from March of 2015 because it is irrelevant to agenda item 2 tonight. The board at the time adopted a rule that stucco would not be allowed as a replacement for wood siding in the Bisbee Historic District, nor vice versa. This rule is still binding. This is in with authority of the board per zoning code article 3.5.2D. We have the agenda. We have the agenda that was from that meeting, and it clearly states that the board did adopt that rule at that time. So having said that, it's still open to the board for discussion and for questions for the applicant.
Sean, could I ask the applicant if they've considered other materials such as cement plank?
Sure.
We have looked at what we may have to consider. First of all, I'm a little confused when I look at the application packet. Exactly where are we in this process right now? When I see the narrative on that packet, I'm just a little confused. Is this the actual meeting where, because I know none of my neighbors have been notified about anything yet, and we haven't posted any signs. So where exactly are we now?
So we're not required to do a 300-foot notice on this type of application. That is why your neighbors have not been notified. The only thing that's required is that the agenda be posted publicly and issued to the members for the meeting this evening.
All right.
So
All right, when did you adopt the new stucco?
2015.
2015? Okay.
yeah,
Because we have a home right next door to us, about 10 feet away. It's stucco, and of course across the street from us, there's stucco, and so it's
New down the street is stucco. The rest is
yeah,
stucco.
it doesn't apply to new. We know that. So
I did.
and
yeah, go ahead.
I did notice that there's a home across the stairway from you that actually is in the process of redoing their facade as well. And the bottom 2 courses of it's at pretty similar siding as you, shiplap. They've replaced with new shiplap. I also noticed on the back of your house that up against the retaining wall that it's probably the previous owner perhaps had replaced the bottom 3 rows or so with galvanized sheet metal, which I thought was a pretty good idea. Maybe it doesn't look the best, but I'm guessing it's working for splash up. So I might consider doing a similar sort of what we call a wainscot, where you take the bottom 12 or 18 inches and do a material change there, and retain the original boards above that point, and then having that wainscot line up with architectural features like, if possible, bottom of window sills or something like that. But I would say the preference would be to replace like with like in a historic manner. And you can also treat the wood with copper or other substances.
Well, the actual condition of the wood on the house is such that it's, it's not workable going forward. So any close review would show that you can put your finger through the siding in a lot of places. So they did tent and treat the place, I think somewhere around 2004, and we just went through a complete treatment with Truly Nolan for termites. But the condition is such that it's not possible to just leave the wood as is. We're faced then at looking at to tear it off and go through the labor of replacing it with a cement product that looks similar to what's on it right now has a much higher installation cost than the stucco. We also pick up an R value of around 13 by being able to get foam on it and 2 coats of stucco, which is important to us because being from Colorado for years, we look at the energy expended on a home and the need for gas or central heating or any of those things, which would be eliminated by getting this R value. And so we're looking at a lot of different things about the benefits of sealing it up right. Yes, they did get some flashing installed years back. We've been familiar with the house for about 15 years, knowing the owner and even staying here. But to mitigate the water that moves around this house is a pretty serious matter. And obviously the water damage to wood is what invites the termite issue. So the ability to really seal it up is to use that metal flashing low, also to replace all the lower boards with a cement product. But it just, again, our history with 10 properties that we have owned, remodeled, or built outright ourselves. And I hold a state master license in Colorado to permit work. I've been doing this for 43 years. So I'm just coming from what I know is the best thing for the house. And, we present with that. And I realize now it's your review, but I also believe that if you move up the gulch, the only place you can even see this home from the street is a slight bit of the north side coming down Brewery Avenue. So it's mainly roof that you see of this home. So I thought we would still, actually look far better than we do right now if anyone was actually close enough to see the house. So I understand the intent and what you are looking to encourage. As you review these matters, But just based on experience professionally and owning our own places, I know there is nothing better for the home than to be able to stucco it, and historically to preserve. I think taken in context there, that's what we're trying to do, is ensure that a 113-year-old home can honestly be maintained properly for many years to come.
If I may, for a moment, when we opened up the meeting tonight, there's a section that we read before every meeting to preface where the board is coming from. And what it said is, we're here to prevent construction, alteration, or remodeling from occurring in a manner that would be detrimental to the historical or visual characteristics of the district. That's one of our toughest things to overcome with applicants on the board. Sometimes what has worked in previous construction jobs on different homes in different locations and locales doesn't necessarily apply to the historic district of Bisbee. I don't argue with you one bit that might be a better material or a better way to go, but we as a board, we are here to uphold the guidelines, the zoning codes that govern the historical district. So having said that, I know that there's no way that the board can approve all of that wood to be removed and masonry board and stucco to be put up. When I was out at the property yesterday, the senior reason in wanting to do the stucco is because the home is sitting in the back of a hill. You have watershed coming down when it rains. It's splashing on that wood and deteriorating it. I would happen to side with Ben on this one, that I could see a wainscoting around the bottom 12 inches, 18 inches, whatever it is, so that we could get you some protection on the bottom portion of the home. But it would have to be like for like on the wood for the home. In the porch area, the front porch area, I definitely would disagree with removing those decorative posts. That detracts from the historical nature of the building, the historical characteristics of the building. And that is something that we are seeking to desperately preserve in this community. I live just up from you. I go by your house on a day-to-day basis. I admire that house for the characteristics that it has because it's a little bit different. And that porch is phenomenal. I might add, I would be willing to consider below the porch, that's wood right there. I could even see that stucco, and then your porch and above would still hold the wood elements that the house currently has.
We would not do anything to the porch. We would maintain, and I believe that how the house presents to the street, to the upper stairs, wherever, that, it would still largely be exactly the same. The trim would be maintained around windows, but the porch, nothing about how that's done would change, except we need to paint. But I think the only thing that you would be lacking in this piece of work is you would not see the lines and the definition of the shiplap by stuccoing. But I've got to say again, I have no choice but to tear the wood off, and I am vehemently opposed to putting wood back on. That's just crazy. That's inviting the termites. That's keeping us in a maintenance picture that is is pretty intense. You have to paint on such a regular basis. So that's why
I do sympathize with you, and I do understand fully. This is a problem that every homeowner in Bisbee faces for the most part. There are some stucco homes. The other thing that I wanted to mention on this application to the board, we don't have a complete materials list. The two windows that are spec'd for replacement, we don't have any samples of what it would be replaced with. And as far as, I mean, we understand what stucco and masonry board is. That it still needs to have a materials list to go along with this. Those are just my thoughts. I'm willing to try to find a way to work on the bottom, like foot, 18 inches of some stucco, and then wood, and find a good sight line that'll keep the historic characteristics of the home. That's just my thoughts.
I'd also want to make a point that I believe this house is contributing, therefore it develops a tax credit. So that adds another layer onto the story, in that if you're going to collect a tax credit, I think it's 50% off your property taxes. You have to abide by the rules of the historic designation for a historic building. And, that is even outside of our purview. That's with the SHPO. So they could elect to delist this house as no longer contributing. Should something major like redoing the facade with stucco occur.
Linda, do you have any input?
I don't mind seeing can you guys hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
I have an earphone thing. I don't mind seeing the stucco and the bottom portion because it was approved in the last month's meeting. Actually, it was approved quite a bit higher than that to the underside of the windows. But I don't want to see any of the shiplap going. I have a home that's full of shiplap. And when I say full of it, I mean 4 walls, and it's a big house. And I get it. I get the termite problem. But if you put in a layer of concrete below, like at the foundation area, and then build up from that, you can't, and then stucco that portion, that should take care of the runoff water, in my opinion. So I definitely agree with leaving all the elements that are there from the decking above. And if you want to change out below the decking, the stucco or, whatever product makes sense, that's an approved product is fine.
Mr. Perfect?
Well, thank you, Mr. Young. I have a question. Now, Joe's letter had referenced that stucco is not allowed, but yet the last meeting we did approve stucco. So my understanding now is, listening to the conversation, is that it's acceptable, but only in certain applied situations, as far as keeping the integrity of the design of the house. Am I correct on that?
Mr. Ward?
There we go. It would be, if you put it down low, like for where foundations are and such, I'm assuming that SHPO would find that acceptable. And the board has done that in a number of cases in the past, and it seems reasonable to me. But when you get above and you're replacing the actual siding on the house with stucco, there's houses that have lost their contributing status. It's 702 is their garage. It's right across from Moon Canyon. And the actual house, I'm trying to think of what their address is, but it's close by there. But it's kind of an orangey stucco house. They lost their contributing status because of the stucco.
We're not
I guess
the status as much as we are about, continuing to lose all the wood on the house. So I think we're not, I understand you're saying like go up to windows, But there's only about 8 feet above grade anywhere around the house. So I find it a little confusing that it's okay to stucco up to the windows, yet to leave the rest from there up, because that certainly changes the historical look of the house considerably at that point. I don't know why it would be objectionable that it covers the entire exposed surface, which is in bad shape in a lot of areas. I have no choice but to tear it off. You couldn't even paint it right now. So
Most of it.
yeah, I don't know.
I believe Mr. Perfect had something else.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that thought after that question that Joe answered. Thank you. I don't have a problem with the water abatement at the lower part of the house, and we've been discussing ground to 18 inches up. I think that's a good idea. I would I guess, and I don't know if I'm allowed to express my preference here, but I would like to see as much of the shiplap remain as possible. And I know that the water is a problem with the majority of houses in Bisbee, mine included. When we do get a torrential rain or even a heavy rain, that my wood on the bottom of my house is exposed to water. So it's something that in maintaining my home, I have to do it on a yearly basis, maintenance and upkeep, so that water does not destroy the wood. So again, I guess just to sum it up quickly is I wouldn't mind coming up 18 inches and doing some sort of and I guess I shy away from the stucco just because of the look of it, and I realize that there are a lot of stucco houses in Bisbee, but the bottom part of it, as far as being stuccoed or concrete board, I think that would be a good option for this.
Thank you, Mr. Perfect.
John?
And you were welcome.
Thomas Yvette, may I speak?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is a really difficult one because we all empathize and sympathize and understand what the applicant wants to do, not only in terms of the look of the place in the future, but also, for the reasons of protection against weather and termites and things. However, I feel like my hands would be tied to approve this for a couple of reasons. One, I don't have enough information with the application regarding materials and seeing an image of what this would look like when it's done. So that's one. And then number two, when I Googled about changing something from siding to stucco, and I pull up the Department of the Interior information about this, it is pretty much strictly forbidden, which I would like to read a little bit about that. And reading this would prevent me from accepting this change. Standard 6 of the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation states that deteriorated architectural features shall be repaired rather than replaced. We all know this. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old design in color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. The guidelines further caution against removing or radically changing wood features, which are important in defining the overall historic character of the building, so that as a result, the character is diminished. The planning process has the following 4 steps. Identify and preserve materials and features that are important in defining the building's historic character. This may include features such as wood siding, brackets, cornices, windows, architraves, doorway pediments, and their finishes and colors. 2, undertake routine maintenance on historic materials and features. 3, repair historic materials and features. For historic materials such as wood siding, repair would generally involve patching and piecing in with new material according to recognized preservation methods. Replace severely damaged or deteriorated historic materials and features in kind. Replacing sound or repairable historic material is never recommended. However, if the historic material cannot be repaired because of the extent of deterioration or damage, then it will be necessary to replace an entire character-defining feature, such as the building siding. The preferred treatment is always replacement in kind, that is with the same material. Because this approach is not always feasible, provision is made under the recommended treatment options in the guidelines that accompany the Secretary of the Interior standards to consider the use of a compatible substitute material. The substitute material should only be considered if the form, detailing, and overall appearance of the substitute material conveys the visual appearance of the historic material and the application of the substitute material does not damage, destroy, or obscure historic features. In many cases, the replacement of wood siding on a building is proposed because little attention has been given to the retention of historic materials. Instead, the decision to use a substitute is made because it is assumed that aluminum or vinyl will be a maintenance-free material. There is a desire to give a building a remodeled or renovated appearance. A decision to replace historic material must, however, be carefully considered for its impact on the historic resource, even when the model planning process has been followed and the appropriate treatment is replaced. It goes on to say, brief focuses on the visual and physical consequences of using a substitute material which would consist of aluminum or vinyl siding for new siding installations on a wood frame historic building. Considerations include the potential of damaging or destroying historic material and features, the potential of obscuring historic material and features, and most important, the potential of diminishing the historic character of the building. I'll send this over to Nina so that she can forward it on to others. It goes into further detail about how to properly deal with this issue, and it's definitely pages and pages long, and that's from the Department of the Interior. Therefore, you know, I would have to strongly, in my thought process, suggest that the candidate find an alternative to replace the existing siding with like for like or a substitute material such as vinyl, for example. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Yvette. Mr. Gapper, did you have anything? I know you originally started the conversation.
No, nothing further. Thank you, Sean.
All right.
I have something to say.
Sure.
Last month, the board approved something that was exactly this thing, and I just find it interesting that this month it cannot be approved. So I really have a problem with that. We either have a standard. The house that was up behind the high school, that was approved to have stuck all the way
Point of order. I'm going to call a point of order. Number one, if we look at this application, they are seeking to remove the shiplap from the entire home.
And I agree it should be amended to allow the bottom, not to completely exclude it. So
Right.
I'm with you on this one,
Well,
Sean.
Okay, and I called a point of order because we're not going to get into contentions of what was approved and not approved at a previous meeting. We got to stay
Yeah.
on topic, okay? What we can do at the end of the meeting, if we want to put that on a future agenda item for discussion, to look at that step specifically, then we can. But during this meeting, we're simply focused on this
Well, that's
application.
exactly what I'm focused on, is this application. I find it unusual that I get stopped from voicing my opinion.
There's boundaries that we've got to stay in.
I think I'm comporting myself within boundaries. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on from this. I've called a point of order. Does anybody else have any further questions for the applicant?
For the applicant,
For the applicant, question, do you, I'm getting an echo, sorry. Okay, do you guys have any responses
Yeah.
so far? Any suggestions, seeing how the board feels?
Well, I see a problem with trying to do just a portion of it because our windowsill heights around the house, they
Can you, I can't hear you if you're talking. I think your mic is maybe not aimed.
I don't know what's up with the mic. Where is the mic?
Okay, we can hear you now.
we have varying heights above grade to windowsills around the house. So to strike some line or to pick one of those means we have, to me, at that point, a very strange look. We're X height on the north side, X height in the back, and different along the south side, which actually cannot be seen from anywhere. But this house in its property, so again, that one's always interesting to me because, you know, this home just does not present itself to the street, to the public, or anywhere except basically some spots in the front that you can see,
And on the surface.
and on the upper stairs, the north side of the house. So that becomes problematic. What is this height? And you stop it, you know, midway through a window. I think it opens up a kind of a can of worms thinking about that. But, you know, I seem to see basically like the consensus of, you know, we're not going to be allowed to stucco or something. But it brings me back again to the fact that 6 weeks ago, the fire with any wind whatsoever could have been roaring through this canyon. And I see a lot of homes that in this town that have new asphalt roofs on them. How is that historic and approved when they'll burn? And a defensible area in a fire is important. We don't want to contribute to burning things down, yet you stucco up with a metal roof, and we know for a fact of living in Colorado in the mountains for 40 years that homes can survive with a cement product on the exterior all the way and a metal roof. In fact, insurance requires it. So I'm stuck thinking about, you know, what makes the most sense in both termite and fire. And so it's, you know, again, moving me off of where we believe we would be best served. This home continuing to degrade based on wood. I don't know how historical that is if it's no longer here. That's the biggest shame. So we just feel that we are probably looking to achieve the best thing for this old home. And again, 10 feet to the south of this is this stuccoed home. And again, all over town. I mean, I don't understand in some ways how muck rock or whatever it is can paint all over these homes, and that ties in historically somehow. So we see so many examples of things that I get the intent and where the board is coming from, but it just seems as though it's not very consistently applied. And you know, extremely disappointing to think somehow we can't do what we know is best for this property.
If I, Ben, go ahead and then I'll go.
Yeah, there were a couple of people that made recommendations. Yvette is the one I remember about possibly using a cementatious shiplap board, which would resolve the well put issue of the siding being along the slope that changes and not having a level datum in which to put a wainscot. Cementatious or metal siding, I think, would accomplish the moisture and termite issue, especially if it's applied in the splash zone. So that would be something I would recommend that I believe the board would accept, and we could possibly start talking about approving that as a change, as a path forward.
When I was out at the house yesterday, I did observe the very thing that the applicant is talking about, the grade lines, the different window levels, et cetera. And I think that what Ian just said is a very good approach as well. If you didn't want to go that route and you still wanted to do stucco on the bottom 12 to 18 inches, I think you would have to find a way to do those lines with the window elements to make it work. And I think you could make it work. But I believe for me, I would want to see if we were to go that route, and if we were to talk about approving this, I would like to see some sort of drawing. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but that way we could see it to elevation, to window height, and get a good understanding of what it is that you would like to try to do. I would also say that along with Yvette, and I said it before, we don't have a complete materials list. So honestly, for me, I would like to see, one of the things that I would like to see is this tabled for 30 days to get a better presentation so that we can make a very good, solid decision for you, and so that we could some of the inaccuracies that can happen when we can't visually see something. And that's often something that that does happen. So that's just kind of my input.
Well, I would not know how to provide to you some kind of a conceptual look in that way. It is I'm being asked to do. So a materials list or any real look of, we submitted for what it was we were requesting here, and I'm sure at this point, it's up to you, I guess. I don't know.
All right. Having said that, I want to get to Mr. Gaffer real quick, and then we're gonna take it to the board for a motion and amongst the members and get this moving in one direction or other.
Thank you. I don't want to belabor it, but I picked up on what Yvette said about a half an hour ago, that this was a sadly deficient submission. Didn't have all of the documentation that we require, considering that the applicant was going to radically change the appearance of the house. So I mean, I think we should. I would certainly vote to deny the application based on a deficient application and the fact that what the applicant was proposing does not conform to our guidelines. If you'd like me to make a motion to deny the application as presented, I would go ahead, or if someone else wants to do it.
At this time, I'm going to open it up to the board to make a motion.
Peter?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to deny application number 21-52 as presented.
Do I have a second?
that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Ben,
Okay, thank you.
Any nays? All right.
So are we allowed to ask some questions?
No, they just
Well,
Yeah.
we need we need to ask questions about, because you've gone back and forth about, you even mentioned that we could put metal siding on here, and that doesn't
This is-
seem texture-wise and,
This
you
is,
know.
this is going to be my recommendation. One, please feel free to reach out to the city, especially Mr. Ward, for some direction. You can also reach out to me directly. I live just up from you. I would be glad to come out and look at the property with you. And you can do so with any other board member that's here. We would be glad to come out and look at it, find solutions. That's what we're here for. But we've already passed the motion. It's been voted on, so this agenda item is concluded for tonight.
I would just
Like-
be on record that, to say that we did not comply on the application. We did just what was asked of us. We got money and they accepted it and scheduled this meeting, which again, I don't even know where we're at on this.
Okay,
I never was told there would be an initial.
sir, I've got a call. I'm going to call a point of order. I've got to move on to the next agenda item. We've already voted. We've given you the direction to proceed after this meeting. And we will be glad to work with you. The city would be glad to work with you. We'll find a solution to this and we'll get through this, but I've got to move on to the next agenda item. Thank you and have a great evening. Moving on to agenda item number 3. Application number 21-54, Deep Residential Historic District contributing property number 272, located at 517A Mayor Avenue. Applicant Paula Bird and Deborah Wood. This application is seeking approval for demolition of the existing structure. The 300-foot notification went out on June 1st, 2021. At the time of the agenda being issued, there were no public comments. At this time, I open it up to the applicants to give their presentation as to the reason for
Hi,
demolition.
this is Paula Bird. So we started working on this property a year and a half ago. And what we found is that most of the building was wood to ground and there was no framing. So
Deb, we can barely hear you. If everybody can move closer to the microphone so that we can hear you, it would be
okay,
greatly appreciated.
where is the microphone? Can you hear better now?
A little
My
bit,
face
yes.
is like right up to the computer. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's see if we can fix this.
That's as high as it goes.
That's as high as it goes, so I'm not sure what's happening. Can you hear me now? Do you have any problem?
Yes, we can hear
Oh, I
you.
never have any problem.
We use this for work all the time and we don't have problems. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So anyway, we started a year and a half ago and we spoke with, I believe, 5 different contractors. 2 never got back to us, or 3 never got back to us. 1 was not willing to do close to what we wanted to do. And the 3rd one started and we waited 6 months. Our permit ran out and he didn't do anything except for some drawings. And then quoted a price that was 3 times what he originally said. So one of the biggest problems is finding someone to work. But then, so I had my brother come out. He's on the East Coast and he's done a lot of building. He is smart about this. So he came out to help us with the plan to lift the house so we can put a foundation under it. Well, because the ceiling and the ceiling rafters are quite burned, the roof rafters, sorry, and because there's no framing in the interior of the house, as we started to lift, and we did it very slowly, little bits at a time, like a couple inches. in one place. Joe came and actually looked at what we were doing, so he's been to the house. It just started to lose its ability to hold together. We, at this point, have 2 come-alongs in one part of the house just holding the walls in. We can't get big equipment up there. And so we, at this point, have run out of options for ideas for what to do. And, you know, we don't have $1 million to do this. And so at this point, we didn't realize when we bought the house that the rafters were so degraded and there was such limited framing inside the house. And that might have been our error. We've got it lifted some, but not enough to be in code if we put cement, like a cement pad under it. So that is the big problem, is trying to get something under it to make it stable.
All right, are you finished with your
Yeah.
presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. This application requires a public hearing. So at this time, I'm going to declare the public hearing open and receive public comments for either opposed or in favor. I'll go with any who are opposed first. All right, we have no public comments that are opposed. Any?
Yes, hi, this is Brian Hope speaking, if I may. I'm a neighbor, or I'm at least in the 300 notification radius, and I do not know the property owners, but I've been on this hill for 20 years plus, so I'm somewhat familiar with the building in question. It's obviously in a horrible, horrible state. To the point, there are no footings, foundation, there's no lateral bracing, no shear walls. The existing framing, I'm using that term loosely, has no semblance of compliant spacing. Every kind of damage imaginable is present there. We have fire damage, we have dry rot, we have water rot, twisting, bowing, etc. And they're not localized to one area of the house. It permeates the entire structure. So I understand that the purpose of this hearing is to assess if the building is a candidate for rehab. Great. To that, I would say yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We can do anything if we have enough money to throw at it. That's the whole point right there. You have to consider how much money you have available to throw at something, and how much money do you want to throw at something before you've hit a point of diminishing returns. We all know what's wrong with the building, that being everything. I'm familiar with this type of project, and it's been my experience that retrofitting structurals, especially at this scale, is significantly more costly than new construction. Arguably, retrofits are more difficult to pull off than new construction. And as the level of difficulty increases, so does the time factor and therefore the money factor. More often than not, wholesale retrofitting like this results in workarounds, compromises, and shortcuts. And this is all at the expense of the project. This is all at the expense of the owner. Does nothing for the investment value of the property. Again, I don't know these owners. I have no stake in this, but I do know they've dumped a small fortune into this house trying to rehab it to no avail. There comes a time when you have to cut your losses and stop throwing good money after bad. That said, in my opinion, demolition and rebuilding in kind would be the best course of action for this property. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Mr. Hope. All right, any other comments in favor? All right, this time I declare the public hearing closed. There are no public comments beyond this point. At this time, I'm going to open it up for the board for discussion. But before we do, I would like to read a quick portion of the zoning code in which we are to determine decisions on demolition. 1, approval. The design review board may recommend approval of the demolition or relocation permit if any of the following conditions exist. One, it is demonstrated that the structure is a deterrent to a major improvement program, which will be a substantial community benefit. Two, a determination is made that a building or structure no longer presents an opportunity for feasible rehabilitation, which is arrived at after an on-site visit by a licensed contractor, structural engineer, or architect experienced in historic preservation work. Any cost shall be borne by homeowner. Three, the investment required to preserve or rehabilitate the structure could not be offset by the return on the property. And then finally, section B, denial. If preservation or rehabilitation is determined to be feasible, and if the structure has been designated as one having special significance or as a contributing property within the district, the design review board shall deny the permit for demolition or movement of a structure. At this time, I open it up to the board for discussion.
Sean?
Hi, Sean. This is Yvette. I have a question.
Sure.
Are you calling on Yvette or someone else?
It's between you or Scott. Scott, did you want to go first?
Let Yvette go first. I'll follow.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a big question, which is, so if it was to be demoed, what's the plan following the demo?
Would you like me to answer that right now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, that would be.
So, I would like to save the wood that's there if we can. It's got beautiful 1x10s or 12s, and you know, where the shiplap is savable. I don't know that I was thinking of the 1x12s on the inside to make it look more historic, or I don't know the right word, but we would like to put a concrete, I'm losing my thoughts, a concrete pad down, and then rebuild it to look like it does now. We don't have any problem with the way it looks. I mean, the architecture is not a problem. And frankly, if we had a foundation, we would have framed the inside and redone all that. But, you know, so anyways, no, we'd keep it looking the way it does now.
Okay.
One more thing. I mean, the roof is piecemeal because it's like, it seems like it was built in 2 sections. I would want the roof line to look better, but metal roofing, that kind of thing, just like is on there now.
All right. Yvette, you got any other questions?
No, I think that's great to know, you know, where they plan to go with it. And it would be, of course, wonderful and much easier, I think, to approve a demo if we could actually see the next step as to what's going to happen following the demo with images and a materials list.
All right. Mr. Perfect.
I agree with the last statement that Yvette just made, but my question to you, Sean, was the criterion that we have to decide whether to demo or not to demo. Could you read number 2 again?
The determination is made that a building or structure no longer presents an opportunity for feasible rehabilitation, which is arrived at after an on-site visit by a licensed contractor, structural engineer, or architect experienced in historic preservation work. Any cost shall be borne by the homeowner. So in short, it's the responsibility of the applicant to present to us the determinations of an architect, someone who specializes in historic preservation. All of those details need to be brought before us in order for us to make a decision to demolition the building in accordance to the zoning codes that govern us.
I certainly have no problem with that. I just didn't want to spend more money up front if it wasn't a possibility. with
Okay.
an, I mean, I definitely would want that.
The other thing, this is a contributing structure. My personal opinion is because it's a contributing structure, I've also been on the board long enough. I do know that demolition is a very, 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 very particular subject with this board. Historically, we have fought tooth and nail with previous homeowners and applicants on whether or not to demo a home. And, you know, often everybody misses these things that are in the zoning code that we have to follow. And each of us has gone out and looked at that property. I know I have. I went out there yesterday. A couple questions that come to my mind is, one, if we're going to allow demolition, all right, and someone's going to go up there and pour a concrete pad, and someone's going to salvage the wood that's already there, that's existing, and the structure is still standing, and you can't get a contractor to do the work now, how are we going to get a contractor to even do the work for a new build?
Well,
Hold on just 1 second, let me finish. Number two, when I was out there yesterday, the house is looking pretty level from where it's been jacked up. I looked at all the work that's been completed so far. What I don't understand is why we can't pour a pad with it existing as it is and possibly take some of the rot off of the bottom of the house to give you the height and the level that you need to pour that pad. I think there are some solutions that we can come to preserve this structure, and it is a contributing structure. So therefore, my position, in my opinion, is we have to do everything possible to try to preserve this. And that's, you know, if we allow these structures to disappear, eventually we won't have a historical community. It is not cheap to do this. To Mr. Hope's point, I would like to say, you know what, preservation in Bisbee is not cheap. I think every one of us here on this board owns a home in this community, and we sink every last dollar that we often have into preserving these homes and making sure that this community is here for years to come for people to enjoy, and for people to see there's history here. There's a reason it has a designation. I personally could not get on board with the demolition. I don't have the proper paperwork before me from an architect and engineer. I don't have cost analysis to look at. So for me personally, there is no way I could get on board with the demolition. Ben?
Hi.
Hi. I don't know if I've
offered last
time that you guys presented. But the house that I'm working on, my house actually is extremely similar to yours. It's a board and batten house. There is no stud framing because they never built them with stud framing back then. And frankly, actually, the board and batten is stronger in shear than a stud frame house. Anyways, there's more wood in the sectional area as well too. I've developed a series of details for exactly the problem that you've had, that you're having with rot on the bottom. And I would be more than happy to show you what those are. They're not expensive, and they're not difficult to implement either. I did have to replace some boards fully that I took from other parts of the house or other houses. I managed not to use any brand new boards. And what that solution is, I'll just say real briefly, is at the bottom and the top, I put a 2x10s in structural, to which the floor and the ceiling were joists were hung on. You've actually already started to do that in some spots with 2x8s. And to me, as a professional architect, I would say that would be an acceptable means of strengthening the house and actually having the wall become an entire shear. From that, you could either hang floor joists or you could set it on a concrete slab. Obviously, you'd have to be careful to use pressure treated lumber when you're coming in contact with concrete, and would maybe want to replace some areas that are too close up against bedrock or whatnot. And then I also devised some ways of insulating those walls as well too, using rigid insulation and drywall on top of that with tar paper between the insulation and the boards. So there are methods of doing this. I'd be more than happy to show you in person if you wanted to come over. But I would be pretty much against demolition. The house is in a similar state as mine was, so that's all I have to say on this.
I'm sorry.
Linda?
Is it me or is it someone else?
I called on Linda.
Okay, so while I agree with what you're saying about preservation, I do have 38 years of experience in the construction business. And I do not feel that this house is feasibly habitable for the rehabilitation. It's not, I don't think it's feasible. It's going to be extremely expensive. It's going to be very hard in the back of the property where the, I guess the wall, the stone wall is, to even finish that out. That's only 3 inches away from the wall. So even pouring a foundation, they're going to have to get in there and do forms. They're still going to have to move that back wall in order for it to comply, because they just won't be able to finish it out. And then the constant water draining down there, they should at least put in some sort of drainage system back there. And right now that is not feasible. That cannot happen if you don't remove that back portion. So I really don't think that the offset by return of property is really there. So I'm going to go with demolition. I think that should happen.
And once again, we have to have, in order to do that, we have to have the proper paperwork for us and those determinations by professionals in order to make that
And
determination.
that's perfectly feasible. I agree with that. That's fine.
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Gafford?
just wanted to draw to your attention, we did have a letter from Mr. Ward and his opinion about this house. He knows it probably better than any of us. And can we either read that into the record or at least ask Mr. Ward to present his findings?
Mr. Ward, would you feel free to present?
I don't have it with me. I'm home.
Do you want me to read it?
Please.
Okay. To the Design Review Board from Joe Ward, staff report regarding July agenda item 3. The application is requesting DRB permission to demolish the contributing structure at 517A Mayor Ave. This property is identified as APN number 103-59-027A, contributing structure 272. Physical condition. Preservation may be appropriate if distinctive materials, features, and spaces are essentially intact and convey the building's historical significance. If the building requires more extensive repair and replacement, or if alterations or a new addition are necessary for a new use, then rehabilitation is probably the most appropriate treatment. Excerpt from the current Secretary of Interior standards for treatment of historic properties. Mr. Ward goes on to say, I do not judge the structure to be a hazard to public safety. There is no financial hardship for requiring that the existing contributing structure be preserved. There is no financial incentive to demolish the structure. Demolishing the existing contributing structure and building new would cost more than rehabilitating the existing home. Last month, the DRB approved the rehab of the lithic project at 24 Moon Canyon, and the prior month approved the Sluicer's rehab of 16 Clausen Ave. These projects provide strong evidence of the viability of preserving our dilapidated historic structures. The recent inflation of property values in our historic district provides more economic incentive to respect our contributing structures. Zoning Code 5.31 states that our historic district is intended to protect, preserve, and enhance the city's character. Demolishing this contributing structure will not meet these goals. Recommendation. Building inspector recommends that the design review board not approve this application for demolishing the contributing home at 517A Mayor Ave. I find the rehabilitation of this contributing home to be financially and physically feasible.
Well, okay. That's interesting because he told me point blank, he thought it was a good idea to bring it up before you. So I have a problem with that, but I don't want to get into that. I do want to mention that our house is about 14 feet up a stone wall, so you can't get anything to it. I don't know, you can't, there's no way to support that back corner to put forms in because there's no room to put forms in. And so and Joe told us that if we can't pour it the way it is because it's not deep enough to go in code. So there's several issues I have with it. We've had a contractor come up and say it wasn't, and I'm happy to do it again. Because if someone knows how to get a foundation in there, great. But at this point, we do not know how to get a foundation in and make that house viable because it's so close to that back rock.
Okay. Keep in mind too, I've been through both of the hearings on 16 Clausen, several of them as well as Mr. Gaffer, Stephen Green, who is not here tonight. Those two members saw Clausen wind through probably about a year and a half, 2 years of whether or not to demolish it, etc. And one of the big contentious hearings that we had with 16 Clausen about a year ago, in order for us to make a proper assessment, we have to see a rehab cost and we have to see a new build cost. We have to see both of those. So when you are having a contractor coming out and looking at it again, that has to be taken into consideration, to come back before the board. Does anybody else have any other input?
What was your question, Sean?
Not a question. I said, does anybody else have any input? Discussion, questions? Yes.
Okay. To answer your question, I am erring on the side of demolition, but if we have criterion to follow, we have to meet that criterion first before we can even decide on this.
Correct.
So my understanding is we need a contractor, architect, or someone of that sort that's licensed to do a rehab cost and a new build cost. We bring that back to you, is that correct?
Yes, so what we'll have to do is, obviously the board's gonna have to take a vote tonight. We have 4 decisions. Obviously approving this, we can't because we don't have the proper documentation. We can deny the application or we can table it for 30 days to give you time. And we can keep tabling at each meeting until you have the necessary paperwork or a correct course of action.
That would be great because we've already spent a ton of money on building permits and DRB, requests that it would be great if we could just do the tabling until we get this squared away.
Okay, that's going to be up to the board to decide. Does anybody have any more questions for the applicant? All right. This time I'd be more than happy to accept a motion.
Actually, could I just say one more thing? I apologize. Could I ask if we go ahead and table this, which I have to disclose that I'm fully in favor of, could we ask the applicant to at least give us a plan of what their proposed alternate would be, so that we're not just saying, well, it's going to cost this amount for this and this amount for that.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you. And it doesn't have to be complete detailed drawings, but at least some elevations, windows, heights, that sort of thing, as prescribed in the DRB guidelines. Thank you.
I would actually prefer to see, I mean, if we're going to demolish a structure and it's going to be a rebuild, for me personally, I would prefer to see a full set of plans, drawings, etc. My concern here is that the client, the applicant's going to run into the same costs building a new structure. It's not cheap. You know what I mean? They're going to be running into the same problems trying to get materials up a hill. The same things still exist with or without a structure there. None of that changes. Finding a contractor that wants to work up there, that problem is still going to exist, whether or not the structure is there or not there. So that's where I'm kind of confused at the logic behind that.
Well, the reason that we bought this house is because we can do a lot of the work ourselves, but we can't put the foundation in. You know, we will hire plumbers, electricians, but we need to have the foundation put in. My brother could have helped us. I got a concrete place. I got someone to pump it. I got all of that, but we couldn't get to a spot where Joe said that we were at a level where we could actually put it in because it didn't meet code and we can't get there. So there's a lot of costs that, first of all, there's a lot of costs we've already put into it. We've already paid for half the plumbing. We've already paid for the electricity. We have laborers for that. We carried all that wood up there. No one else did. So we've done a lot of the work ourselves. But there are a few things we can't do. We can't roof it. We can't put the foundation in. So those are the things that we need to do. So I'm happy to get costs either way, but it's not going to cost us as much to do building as you would think.
I can offer to help some.
Okay, Linda.
I just want to make a comment that when you remodel anything, it typically is more than when you do new build, unless there's an offset with the demolition. But I don't think it's up to us to consider or even worry about who goes up there, who's doing the work. That's up to the owner, the residents. So I think that if they get spreadsheets on existing versus new, and they get a recommendation from, I would probably say, a structural engineer at this point, I think that should be sufficient for us. And then if the cost is a lot less to rebuild new than the new drawings. But I don't think we should incur or have them incur costs to do a whole full set of drawings if it's not even applicable.
I disagree. We've made those parameters before. We made those parameters on 16 Clausen Avenue. It's not anything that we have not done before. The zoning code strictly states that they have to meet certain criteria in order for it to do it, in order for us to do a demolition. And that criteria is going to.
I get that. So if they.
I understand that it's, we all have an opinion, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the blackboard on the white page.
And I think that's fine if they follow that criteria. I don't know if a full set of foundation drawings, et cetera, is part of the criteria, but if it is, then go ahead with that. But definitely look into that with somebody who knows the code and the zoning and all the different criteria.
All right.
I have a question. last time we went before the DRB and they told us what we needed to do, we never got anything in writing. So it wasn't, I take notes, but I thought we were supposed to get something in writing, and I'm wondering if that's the case or if I'm mistaken.
Referring to,
So that, yeah, to the meeting minutes, like what you guys voted on, what we needed to do. And the other thing is I'm having a very hard time finding specific rules. I've looked at online at the, what are they called? The worldwide ones, the standards. But that's building codes. It doesn't have to do with the historic.
if you can reach out to Nina at the city, she can get you the documentation from the previous meetings that you're seeking. And she can also give you the Secretary of Interior standards, where to go for that. There's SHPO as well. We'll make sure that you have the information that you need to be able to address this application as we work through it.
So the Secretary of the Interior is the historic information I need?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And
so,
I'd like to add one thing. The code that would be relevant to this would be the IEBC 2018, International Existing Building Code 2018, and that's the code that would prevail here, which allows you to do modifications to an existing historic building. If you were to look at the 2018 IRC, that's for new construction, and that really doesn't apply here in this scenario. So you'd want to go with the IEBC, which is much more lenient. And you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I can volunteer my time and help you navigate those if you're motivated to save the building.
who is that talking to me?
That's Mr. Lepley, Ben Lepley.
Ben. Okay. Thanks.
All right.
So
Yes.
I just want to be clear. I'm going to automatically get the minutes for this meeting or not?
No, you'll need to reach out to Nina at the city offices.
Okay.
It takes them, a little bit to process all the minutes. But if you reach out to her, she will definitely assist you in that direction.
Okay.
All right. At this time, I will be more than happy to open it up to the board for a motion. Mr. Gafford?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, by all means, to table agenda item 3, which is application number 21-54, for 30 days or until such time that the applicant can present the documentation as discussed during this hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Good.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Was that
Okay.
Linda or Scott that seconded it? I heard two
Linda.
people.
Yeah, Linda second.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. All right. Thank you for your time this evening. All right, moving on, agenda item 4. Application 2158, Bisbee Residential Historic District, property located at 913 Tombstone Canyon. Applicant Bond Family Trust, representative is going to be Brian Hope. The application is seeking approval for a new construction wood frame single story studio, 647 square feet. The 300-foot notification went out on June 23rd, 2021. At the time the agenda was published, there were no public comments. This application does require a public hearing, but before we do that, I'm going to turn it over to the application presentation.
Good evening. This is Brian Hope again. I'm representing the Bond family. Couldn't be here tonight, but they do send their regards. Pretty much like is detailed in the application. These people would like to build a single-story studio on their property. Small footprint, under 647 square feet. I think everybody will be really happy to hear that this time I'm not asking for any variances. So that said, standard materials, ubiquitous in the area. We modeled the structure after the existing home on the property. Sorry to bring up a sore topic, but the owners have requested a stucco finish on the body of the house, with the gable walls being 16-inch board and batten. Corrugated roofing, vinyl windows. While we are on the subject of vinyl windows, I did get a change order too late to file an amendment. So I'd like to refer you to the elevations. That would be sheet A4. And in particular, if you look at the elevation in the top left corner, you'll see the 4 banks of mold windows. The 2 banks to the left side of the building are going to be replaced with 3 32-inch double hung windows in lieu of those. Everything else remains the same. Don't know what else I can tell you about this project at this point, so I'll just be happy to entertain any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. All right, at this time, I'm going to declare the public hearing open and receive public comments. I will go with those who are opposed. Do we have any comments opposed this evening? All right, no, we don't. Moving along. Any comments in favor of this application this evening? No. All right, I now declare the public hearing closed. And I open it up to the board for discussion. Yes, Mr. Perfect.
I have visited the proposed job site, and I know that for the last couple of meetings that stucco has been a sore point. But I wanted to give my input as to the existing house that is there is a 2-story house. The bottom floor of that house is actually stucco, and the upper story is board and batten. And I think that what has been designed to go into that studio falls directly in line with the design of the original house. So I don't have a problem with the stucco and the board and battens on the gable ends, because it does, to me, match the house entirely.
Mr. Perfect, I agree with you. When I was out there yesterday, I noticed that the gables are being designed exactly like the main house. And also, it looks like, there was like Brian, you might be able to know what it is, but you've got the main house, and it looks like there's it was a garage or something off to the front of it.
Yes, I really have no idea what is inside of there. It was a strange addition to the, I guess that would be the east of it. There is a pergola between the two structures, but that first offshoot, I have no idea what that is. It is strange.
Yeah, but I noticed that you're matching it, and I think that looks really good with the new build. I mean, this is just something to suggest, Brian.
Yes, sir.
You know, I know they're probably set on vinyl windows. It's not the end of the world, but you know, they just don't last here.
Mr. Young, agreed. Me, myself, and I fully hate vinyl windows. However, this is not my little candy store. I did recommend anodized aluminum clad wood windows. That's my go-to, but they are significantly more expensive, and the property owners, this is what they expect. So that's why I had to go along with that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And given my druthers, I wouldn't do stucco, but it's not my little candy store.
Anybody else?
Hi, Shauna. This is Yvette. May I speak?
Yeah.
So I think we all sound like we're pretty down on stucco, but it is in the Department of the Interior's information, and it is utilized, and it is historic. I think where it has become an issue is, you know, in the most recent case where they're removing a different type of material and trading that out or trying to trade that out for stucco. But it seems that there isn't so much an issue with utilizing stucco, for example, for a new build. And it does date back to the 1800s. There's all kinds of information about that online if anybody cares to read more about it.
Thanks, Yvette. Any other comments? Questions?
I agree with both you and Scott. I saw the property and at first I didn't notice it was stucco. I certainly noticed it on the drawings. And but then after getting closer, I realized it was stucco, so it would match the main house.
All right. Anybody else? All right, let's take it to the board. At this time, we'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion. That's all right. Am I allowed to make 3 in a row?
You are.
Okay. Agenda item 4, application number 21-58. Motion to approve as presented.
I will second.
Do we need to make in the motion, do we need to add what he's going to change for the elevations for the windows? Or to replace the windows on page 4?
Yes. Yes. Brian,
Yes, sir.
can you give us an exact description once again so that we can get this motion done correctly for the window change?
Absolutely. That would be on elevation south, meaning we're looking north. The 2 gangs of mold windows to the west of the building will be replaced with 3 32 by 48 double hung vinyl windows, spaced evenly. Did that make sense? I
Yep.
hope.
Mr. Gaffer, would you like to make the motion now?
I will do my best. I won't do justice to Mr. Hope's description. Agenda item 4, I make a motion to approve agenda item 4, application number 21-58, including the change to the windows on the south elevation, as noted by the applicant. Is that sufficient to get us through?
I would add in the 3 32 by 48.
You made notes, I didn't.
I promise
Yes.
we'll build it as described.
Yeah, okay. Are we good, Dana?
Dana?
You're muted.
Okay.
Got a nod.
All right, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Ben, you're opposed?
No,
No,
I'm in
I'm in
favor.
favor.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time and consideration.
Thank you, Brian.
Right, moving on, agenda item number 5. Approval of the minutes of June 2nd, 2021 meeting. Someone like to make a motion?
Peter?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 2nd, 2021 meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Right.
Aye.
Agenda item 6, review, discussion, update, checklist for minimum requirements for design review board applications submitted.
Sean, Mr. Green is the one that asked for that to be on this next agenda. Maybe we should just table this and have it the next time he's available.
Yes, let's do so. I'll make a motion to table agenda item number 6, review, discussion, update checklist for minimum requirements for the design review board application submitted. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nina, on that motion, did I need to say table for 30 days? Or,
No, it's fine. It'll go to the next meeting.
all right. Agenda item 7 was removed from the
Yes,
agenda.
it was, sorry about that. It was, but after I had already sent the agenda out, I got the other information from Yvette. And Yvette, thank you so much for getting that for me.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right, moving on. Staff comments. Nina, it's open to you.
The only comment that I really have is that hopefully starting in August, we're going to do in-person meetings. We have not determined the location, if it will be at 76 Erie Street or at the council chambers on Toryville. But as soon as they let us know, that's where the next meeting in August, I think it's the 4th, will be in person instead of on Zoom.
Yay.
Yay.
Terrific. Will we be required to wear masks or not?
I think we haven't quite hammered that all out, but I think it's going to be based on how you feel about a mask. If you want to wear one, I believe you can. But if you're comfortable not wearing one or been vaccinated, then you don't have to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nina,
Yes.
masks aside, are we required to wear pants?
Yes. Pants, shorts are even available too. I mean, acceptable too, but pants, yes, please. And shoes.
I don't even know what to say. Quick question for you, Nina. This is just a check. I remember last year, I don't remember at what point it was, we were in COVID. We received emails for some type of historical preservation, a class training. And I remember we sent back responses and we got another email and then it just kind of fell off into space. And I was wondering if it got canceled or if it's still something that we're able to partake in.
I don't know. I'm going to have to look at that because Teresa is the one that forwarded that email to me. So
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look and then contact them to find out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other staff comments? Joe? No? All right. Future agenda items. May I remind everybody when we do this section that it is simply for a future agenda item. It is not open for discussion. It has to be on the agenda for discussion. So at this time, does anybody have any future agenda item suggestions? No, all right. We'll move on to adjourn and be more than happy to take a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Well, I guess it's me then. All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Make a
Gavin.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
all.
much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Everyone.